Late 1942, Guadalcanal. An American intelligence officer carefully opens a small, blood-stained notebook recovered from a fallen Japanese soldier. He isn't searching for troop movements or secret codes. He expects to find the usual patriotic slogans, cries of devotion to the emperor. Instead, he discovers neatly written lines of poetry about cherry blossoms, mundane notes on the weather, and then a chilling day-by-day record of a body consuming itself. The entries track a dwindling rice ration, the onset of uncontrollable shivering, and a growing, desperate obsession with the memory of a single sweet potato. That soldier's notebook was not an anomaly. By the end of the campaign, Allied intelligence would collect and translate hundreds of them. These deeply personal documents, filled with fear and hunger, became an unlikely weapon, revealing a real-time picture of an army's collapse that was invisible in official reports. How did the most private thoughts of an enemy soldier become a key to his defeat? And what do these voices from the grave truly reveal about the war on what became known as Starvation Island? By October 1942, the struggle for Guadalcanal had settled into a brutal stalemate, dictated by geography and technology. The entire battle hinged on a single 3,800-foot strip of packed coral and dirt, Henderson Field. From this airfield, American F-4F Wildcat fighters and SBD Dauntless dive bombers of the Cactus Air Force owned the sky during the day. And because they owned the sky, they owned the sea. The channel north of the island soon earned a grim nickname: Iron Bottom Sound, a graveyard for any Japanese supply ship caught by the morning sun. The Imperial Japanese Navy's answer was daring and ultimately fatally flawed. Each night, under the cover of darkness, fast destroyers would race down the channel from their base in Rabaul. The Americans called it the Tokyo Express. But these warships were built for speed, not cargo. They could deliver thousands of fresh soldiers for Japan's 17th Army, but they couldn't carry what an army truly needs to fight: heavy artillery, ammunition, and, most critically, tons of food and medicine. In the command bunkers of Rabaul and Tokyo, the numbers looked promising. Reports showed more troops landing. Victory seemed within reach. But the math of logistics is unforgiving. Every soldier delivered was another mouth to feed, another body susceptible to the island's rampant malaria and dysentery. The army on Guadalcanal was growing larger, but it was also growing weaker, being slowly strangled by an invisible noose. Convinced that one more push was all that was needed, Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake, commander of the 17th Army, received his orders. He was to launch a massive coordinated assault from the jungle to finally seize Henderson Field. It was a plan based on manpower, not supplies, a gamble that would depend on the fighting spirit of men who were already beginning to starve. On the night of October 24th, 1942, under a torrential downpour, General Hyakutake's gamble began. For 3 days, thousands of men from Japan's elite Sendai Division threw themselves against the American perimeter around Henderson Field. The attacks, launched through a tangled, unfamiliar jungle, were fierce but fatally uncoordinated. They ran directly into the interlocking fields of fire from Marine machine guns, mortars, and canister shot from 37mm anti-tank guns. The Americans, dug in and well supplied, held their ground. By October 26th, the offensive had shattered. It was a catastrophic failure, costing the 17th Army thousands of its best assault troops. For the Japanese soldiers who survived, something more than the attack had broken. The official promise of a swift, glorious victory was gone, replaced by a stark, private reality. The battle for the airfield was effectively decided. Now a silent, more desperate war would be fought in the jungle, and an unexpected source of intelligence was about to reveal its true, horrifying nature. The evidence of this new silent war was not found in intercepted radio traffic or aerial photographs. It was found on the bodies of the dead, in the pages of small, water-stained notebooks. These documents were sent to the rear, to a little-known but vital intelligence unit, the Allied Translator and Interpreter Section. At its heart were the Nisei, American-born sons of Japanese immigrants. Their position was one of profound and painful irony. While their own families were being held behind barbed wire in internment camps back in the United States, these soldiers were deployed to the Pacific, their fluency in the Japanese language and culture now a critical weapon of war. Their mission? To read the enemy's mail, his manuals, his official orders, and most intimately, his private diaries, searching for any scrap of tactical intelligence. At first, the diaries retrieved after the failed October offensive told a familiar story. They were filled with the expected expressions of patriotic duty, of loyalty to the emperor, and of unshakable confidence in a final, glorious victory. But as October bled into November, the Nisei translators began to notice a subtle but persistent change. A new theme emerged, a complaint that cut through the official rhetoric. Entries started to meticulously track the daily rice ration. Soldiers wrote about it being cut from 4 go, about 600 grams, down to 3, and then to 2. It wasn't yet panic. It was the low, steady drumbeat of impending hunger, a signal of a logistical failure far more severe than anyone on the American side had yet realised. By mid-November, the tone shifted from complaint to clinical horror. The translators began flagging 2 words that appeared with sickening frequency: malaria and seikiri, malaria and dysentery. The diaries became journals of physical disintegration. A soldier from the 228th Infantry Regiment describes uncontrollable shivering fits that make it impossible to hold his rifle. Another records the debilitating weakness of dysentery, the shame of being unable to even stand for morning formation. These were not the writings of warriors, they were the observations of men watching their own bodies betray them. The jungle itself had become the primary enemy. One diarist noted grimly that more of his comrades were now falling to the green sickness than to American bullets. Then the obsession began. As rations dwindled to nothing, the diary entries became fixated on a single subject: food. The thought of it, the memory of it, the desperate, all-consuming search for it. The soldiers coined a grim pun for their prison, changing Guadalcanal to Gashima, the character for Ga meaning hunger, Starvation Island. The diaries detail this new reality. One soldier, an artilleryman, writes not of battle, but of the hunt for snails and the proper way to boil tree roots to make them edible. Another describes the bland, fibrous taste of a palm shoot, and then spends a page trying to recall in perfect detail the taste and texture of a sweet potato he ate a year earlier. The diaries show a complete mental takeover, where all other thoughts of family, of honour, of victory were erased by the primal, gnawing need for a single bowl of rice. In the final pages of these journals, the translators witnessed the complete collapse of a modern army. The last vestiges of military discipline and patriotic faith dissolved into bitterness and despair. Soldiers wrote openly about their contempt for their officers, whom they accused of hoarding secret caches of food. Entries once filled with slogans like Hakor Ichiu, all the world under one roof, were now filled with a profound sense of abandonment. "We have been forgotten," one soldier wrote. "Does Tokyo even know we are here?" The diaries reveal men who no longer feared the American Marines on the other side of the perimeter. The only thing they feared was waking up to another day of malaria, another day of dysentery, another day of gnawing, endless hunger. This stream of intelligence flowing from the Nisei translators to the G2 intelligence officers was more than a collection of tragic stories. It was a precise, real-time graph of the enemy's declining combat effectiveness, and the American command was about to use it to change the course of the entire campaign. In December 1942, a new commander took charge of American ground forces, Major General Alexander Patch. When his intelligence officers presented their synthesis of the diaries, he understood a truth invisible from the front lines. The Japanese 17th Army was a hollow force. It was no longer capable of a major offensive. Patch made a calculated and chilling strategic shift. There would be no more costly, large-scale assaults. Instead, he would wage a war of attrition. He unleashed aggressive patrols and used his artillery not just to destroy, but to harass, to deny rest, to compound the misery documented in the notebooks. Hunger and disease were now his primary weapons. For the Nisei translators, the work became a grim burden, weaponizing the intimate suffering of men who, in another life, could have been family. As the Americans tightened the noose, late January reconnaissance spotted a massive Japanese naval buildup. It looked like one last desperate reinforcement. The final bloody battle seemed inevitable. But the final bloody battle never came. As American forces advanced in early February 1943, they met an eerie, unsettling silence. The Japanese naval armada wasn't there to reinforce, it was there to rescue. This was Operation K, a brilliantly executed secret evacuation. Over 7 nights, destroyers spirited away nearly 11,000 survivors. The last diaries, recovered from the abandoned camps, revealed the true, horrific nature of this withdrawal. The final entries describe a procession of skeletons staggering to the beaches. A brutal triage was in effect. Only men who could walk unassisted were taken. The hopelessly sick and weak were left behind, some with a single grenade for a final duty. The war of attrition, guided by the intelligence from these notebooks, had been devastatingly effective. The enemy army had dissolved before a final blow could be struck. The Americans had prepared for a battle against a phantom. In the end, it comes back to that single notebook, held in the hands of an American translator. That one soldier's voice, multiplied by hundreds, told a story that official reports could never contain. It was a raw, human counter-narrative, dismantling the wartime myth of the unshakable Japanese warrior. These diaries were the proof that the imperial soldier was not a fanatic caricature, but a man who could be broken by hunger and despair. They revealed that the battle for Guadalcanal was decided not just on the ridges, but in the empty holds of the Tokyo Express, and in the minds of starving men. The imperial soldier was prepared to die for his emperor, but on Guadalcanal, his own diary bore witness to a death not for an empire, but for a handful of rice.